We're coming in hot today on the bedazzle progress. I got the border almost done. And the original goal was to do the entire cover. I don't know, guys. I don't know. We'll see. But I think next I'm going to work on the slipper and then I'll decide if I want to do the rest of the cover because it's a lot. But today we are going to talk about a topic that I love to talk about because I don't think we talk about it enough as a society. And that is friendship breakups. And that's where we start chapter 6, which is April 2017. And I had a friend, I call her Lily in the book. That is not her real name. But I had met her when I first moved to Chicago. We worked together. And so we became friends immediately. But then over the years, our friendship turned into one of those friendships where we would go through periods of like hanging out all the time and doing things all the time to sometimes we wouldn't even talk at all for like 6 to 9 months. But then when we did start talking again, we would just pick right up where we left off and everything would be fine. And that's just kind of that was the flow of our friendship. And there wasn't, at least on my end, I never really had any hard feelings or like thought anything about it when we took the breaks. Although, actually, I'll get to it in a minute. I was going to say there were some red flags in hindsight, and I'll actually save that till the end of the chapter. But where this chapter starts is during this time, because again, this was April 2017, we were at a period of our friendship where about once a month, we would have lunch on Sundays. And this was part of our routine. And it had probably been going on for like a year. And so I reached out to her because my dad had just died and I just needed ways to get out of the house because if I stayed at home by myself, I would just end up crying on the floor. And after a few months, I was just tired of feeling that way. And I wanted to get out of the house and be around someone and just have a normal conversation. So I texted her and I told her that my dad died. And I was like, hey, do you want to have lunch on Sunday? And so she texted me back and she was like, sorry for your loss. I'll check my schedule and get back to you. And I know text can be weird because I tend to be kind of a blunt texter and I think it can come off sounding like mean or mad or like the tone can be misread. But I was like, man, this sounds really cold, like really cold. Like I was speechless. And then she never got back to me. And I'm the kind of person, well, let me put it this way. I'm totally different than I was back then. So it's hard to say how I was back then, but I do think I was the kind of person that outside of my dad passing away, if this was a normal circumstance, I probably would have followed up with her like, hey, did you check your schedule or what's it looking like? But because my dad had died and I was in so much grief, I just didn't have the capacity for that. So I was like, I'll just let her get back to me. Well, so anyway, an entire month goes by. I don't hear from her at all for a month. And then a month later, so this would have been in May, I get a group text from her. So it was from Lily to me and these two other girls. I don't even remember their names. I knew who they were because I had been around them or whatever, but they were her friends. And she was like, hey guys, just wanted to see if you guys want to get together for lunch in a few weekends. And it would have been like on a Sunday, like what we normally would have done on a Sunday. But yet she was inviting these two other girls who I wouldn't feel comfortable talking about my dad passing away in front of them. So even if I did go, like that's not the environment that I wanted to be in where I would have to like filter myself or I don't know, it just felt all weird and awkward. And again, I was different back then. Maybe I would have handled it differently now. But my overall point was I was so hurt because she had never even responded to my initial text, and now here she is initiating a group text with these two other girls that I'm not even really friends with. And I was just so hurt and heartbroken. And again, me now probably would have handled it differently, but me then, I removed myself from the group chat and just didn't respond, didn't read. I was like, I'm not interested in having lunch with them. And so then Another month goes by. So this is 2 months after the original text. And all I had heard from her was this group text. And so she texted me and she was like, hey, are you available for lunch on Sunday? And again, I was just so hurt because she didn't, actually, I think she did acknowledge. Let me look at my notes. Oh, this was her text, because in the book I used our actual text, and I even figured out, because I formatted the book myself, so I even figured out how to format it so it looked like text bubbles. So I take great pride in that. So if you want to read the paperback or Kindle and you see the text bubbles, and this isn't the only situation where I did text bubbles, but I did that myself. And so anyway, what she said was, and again, this is 2 months later. Hi, Angie. Sorry for not getting back to you about lunch. I can be available on Sunday. Let me know what time works for you. And I was just so heartbroken because it just felt so insensitive. She did say sorry for not getting back to you about lunch, but this was 2 months later. It wasn't like it was a few days later, a few weeks later. I don't know. It just felt really cold and insensitive. And I used to be a people pleaser, so I used to be the kind of person that would like respond immediately, but I was at a loss for words because I was so hurt that I was like, I need to think about what I want to say to her, because it was not an immediate yes. I didn't want to have lunch with her. So it took me several days to process this. And so several days go by and I don't respond to her. So then she texted me, I think it was like 2 days later. A few days later, and she texts me and she's like, hey, Angie, just checking in to see if you had decided on lunch. So then I got super pissed off because it's like, okay, you can take 2 months to respond to me, and if I don't respond in 2 days, like, you're getting all antsy and impatient. So then I was pissed, and then I really started thinking about, it was just beyond what I even wanted to say to her and what I actually wanted from the friendship. And I was like, why would I want to be friends with someone like this? And my intuition, or whatever, maybe it was the real me, was like, I don't. And that was a really scary thought to have, because I had never broken up with a friend. Like, friendships had either just like slowly faded away or whatever, like the circumstance would take care of itself. But I was like, I don't want to be friends with her. And then I didn't know how to process that, because it's like, but what do I do about it? Do I tell her? Do I just ghost her? I didn't know how to handle it. And, actually, I like this feeling. So my internal voice was like, why would I want a friend like that in my life? And my answer was, I don't. And then, this is reading straight from the book. A feeling creeps in that I have only felt a few other times in my life. Inner strength. This friendship isn't serving us anymore. I've never ended a friendship, so I am unsure how to do it. I'm just going to read this as an excerpt. I start crying as I text her, and my internal voice is like, what if she hates me? What if this is a mistake? And then I text her. Hi, Lily. After thinking about it, I have decided that I no longer wish to continue this friendship. Thank you for all of the good times, and I wish you the best. And then my internal voice starts berating me. Should I be doing this over the phone instead? I have no idea how to communicate. She's going to hate me. And then she responded, hi, Angie. I consider you a really good friend, and I don't want to lose the friendship. Can you please reconsider? And so my internal voice is like, shit, she's right. What am I doing? And so I text her, I'll think about it and get back to you tomorrow. I sleep on it, but my intuition is still saying no when I wake up. I start crying all over again. When I text back, I feel the need to explain myself. And I say, hi, Lily. I thought about it and I stand firm on my decision. I was there for you when you needed a job referral from Sarah Lee and couldn't rely on anyone else because you had been fired. I don't understand why you couldn't be there for me when my dad died. So the backstory to this is I ended up quitting that job at Sara Lee and finding another job. It was like a straight hellhole. For those of you who don't know, the brand Sara Lee still exists. The company does not. And this was like at the tail end of when the company started to go downhill. It was just such a dumpster fire. And I was like, I need to get the hell out of there. Like, they were like in panic mode. They would reorganize. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. Every 3 to 6 months. I worked there for a year. I think I had like 4 or 5 different managers. It was just such a shit show. And so I quit and got a new job. She was still there, but she got moved under this manager who hated her. So she ended up getting put on a PIP and let go. Well, so then because she was fired when she was looking for a new job, she didn't have, like, she couldn't use our manager as a referral. So she was like, can I use you as a referral, since we worked, and we didn't work directly together, but like, whatever. So I was like, yeah, put me down as a referral. So I actually spoke to the new job that she got after Sara Lee. I spoke to her hiring manager because he called me as a reference. And I was like, yeah, she's amazing, blah, 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 even though we had never directly worked together. So I felt like I had really done her a favor. And then for her not to be there for me when my dad died. But in hindsight, and I even reflect on this like immediately after this conversation. Actually, I'll get back to the conversation because I cover this in the book. But anyway, so I send her that text like, I did this for you. Why couldn't you do this for me? And she completely missed my point. And her response was, oh, you just had to bring up that I got fired. You knew the situation was unfair. And then she continued on this rant about how I was rubbing it in her face that she got fired. And it's like, I don't give a shit that you got fired. That wasn't my point. My point was like, this is what friends do for each other. But then I even say, I instantly regret bringing it up because she totally missed the point that I was there for her, but she wasn't there for me. And now that I think about it, bringing it up feels like a quid pro quo statement anyway. So I regretted it in that moment because I was like, it was just completely misguided. And then she ended up sending me this text like, well, this tells me what kind of person you are, blah, 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 and turning it around on me. And I just stopped responding. But at the time, this is the worst part about it, because again, this was my first friendship breakup and I thought I was doing the right thing, but then she turned it around on me and got all angry and mad. And so I left this conversation with, actually, I'll read the last paragraph. Another stab in my heart. I don't have the emotional strength for this. Dad fucking died and all I wanted was to have lunch with her and now she hates me. How am I going to get through the rest of my life? I don't know what the hell I am doing. So I ended up like in this self-deprecating, self-criticizing mindset because I thought I effed up because I didn't end the friendship correctly. And I thought I messed up. But in hindsight, I think I would have handled it a little bit differently, but I definitely did the right thing by communicating like, hey, this isn't working for me, so let's just cut it off. But my point is, actually, there's like 2 things I want to say about this. Number 1, there were some red flags in hindsight because I made it sound like, oh yeah, like our friendship was totally chill and cool. But if I'm being honest with myself, it wasn't, because like the 2 things I can think of off the top of my head, I remember one year on Halloween, she invited me out. She's like, hey, I'm getting a group of people together to go out on Halloween. And it was like this new trendy place that had opened in the West Loop. And I was like, yeah, sure, cool. And I get there and because that toxic relationship that I had, like at the time we were so on and off, and this was a period where we were off and she knew that. So I get to this Halloween party, it was all couples except for me. And I feel like that was like a really easy detail that she could have communicated to me, even if she wasn't aware initially, like, hey, this is going to be all couples. Are you okay with that? There came a certain point where she would have known like, oh, this is going to be all couples. Maybe I should let her know. No, there was zero communication of that. So I show up, it's all couples, and I felt so weird and awkward. And it almost felt intentional. And then I never said anything about it, and the resentment started to build. So there was that situation. And then another thing about her, I started practicing, for those who don't know, and this isn't the greatest design, but I do my own nail art. And I think I started around 2012. And even now, I consider myself still learning, but especially back then, I was still learning. Like, I wasn't an expert, I wasn't a professional, but I was always trying new designs, always trying to do something new. And like, I wasn't perfect. Like, to this day, I'm still not perfect. And she would always look at my nails, and she would always point out the mistakes. Even if it was like a really great set and there was only one little mistake, she would hone in on the mistake and point it out. And in hindsight, I realized that's exactly like my mom. I wonder why I was attracted to a friendship with her. So there were red flags in hindsight with her. And I think that's why intuitively, I mean, this would have been a big deal to me, period, with my dad dying and her not being supportive. But I think it was like other things had happened. I'm going to pause this because of the siren. Okay, this is like a side tangent. And again, I'm originally from Chicago, but or anywhere else I've ever lived or been, emergency vehicles drive with urgency. Here, they drive so slow, which pisses me off because, one, what if it's a real emergency? And two, then you have to hear the siren for like 5 minutes straight because they're driving at like 30 miles per hour. So anyway, that's just a side tangent. But my point about Lily was there were red flags in hindsight, and I think internally there was some resentment already building, so that when this happened, I was just kind of like, I don't see what the point is in being friends with her. Like, that's where I was, and that's how this all came about. And then the other thing I want to say about this chapter is I was really passionate about including this chapter because as a society, I don't think we talk about friendship breakups enough. And even since that situation, I've had other friendship breakups that I've had to initiate, and I still don't feel like I know what I'm doing. They're hard. Feelings are hurt. I've had similar reactions where like the other person lashes out. I've even tried ghosting. Like, there was one friend, I actually ended up ghosting her, and I'm not proud of that, but it's like at the time I was like, well, saying what I thought was my truth didn't work either, so I'm just going to ghost her. But then I ghosted her, and it still doesn't sit well with me. So my point is, I don't think we talk about this enough, and I don't think there is a right way to break up with a friend. I'm still trying to learn, and I'm still trying to learn, at what point do you actually break up instead of still trying to set boundaries? Like, it's this whole thing, and I wish I would have included more of that in the book because I think there is another friendship breakup that I'll talk about later, and I just kind of glazed over it because I was like, I had already included the full story of this one. But overall, I think we should be talking about friendship breakups more because it's totally a thing and it can hurt just as bad as a romantic breakup. So that's why I find this chapter really impactful and I really like talking about it. And then I think we only have time for one more chapter. I feel like every chapter I'm like, okay, this is the last one. I'm going to go into a lot of detail. But I am going to go into a lot of detail on chapter 7 because this is a fan favorite chapter, mostly because so many people have reached out to me and been like, this same thing or something similar happened to me. And this was so embarrassing for me and it was so hard to write about. But this just goes to show that we all go through the same things. The human experience, even though the nuances and details are different, the human experience is very similar. And we all go through shitty things and we all make mistakes and we all do, crazy shit. And so let's just talk about it. So let's talk about chapter 7, which is August 2017. And I'll just read the first sentence. It's an odd number year and summer, so that only means one thing. It's time for Will's biannual rooftop party. So there was a guy from the gym. I don't know why I changed his name. His name is Greg, but he would always have a rooftop party every other year. So it was the odd number years. So this was 2017. So we apparently skipped 2016 and But anyway, he lived on the river. God, what neighborhood is that considered? I don't even remember the neighborhood names in Chicago anymore. It was really bad, but it was like a northwest neighborhood. And the rooftop of his building had this beautiful view of the Chicago skyline. And this rooftop party, like, the way I say it, it probably just sounds like an average party. He went all out. He would get like the best DJ in the entire city. He would get a dance floor because it was like a wood deck rooftop. He would get a dance floor laid out on the rooftop. It was like this full buffet of food. It was actually really nice and fancy. And it was usually a white party. And I know this sounds weird, but usually a large percentage of the people showing up were black and they would be wearing white. So because I'm white, and also people who know me now know that I never wear black. I don't even own anything black. But when I lived in Chicago, I only wore black. I think my entire wardrobe was black. So I definitely didn't own anything white. So my whole philosophy was like, I'm white, so I'm going to wear black. So I would always wear black to the all white rooftop party. So anyway, this party, it was so much fun, so much dancing, and because it was every other year, I think it would still be fun even if it was every year, but because it was every other year, the anticipation would build for 2 years, which I think made it even more fun. And this was the kind of party couples would go together, and then if you came to this party single, you were going home with someone else. I think it was just because all of the dancing and intimacy. I honestly don't even know, but it was so much fun. And I would always go to this party with my boyfriend, Mark. So he had just broke up with me earlier that year, and I knew he would be going. And the question in my mind is he going to bring his new girlfriend, Julia? So I was like, I can't go to this party because I'm going to be so embarrassed and humiliated. But it was so much fun. So there was this other part of me, because I'm stubborn. I'm like, I'm not going to this party just because he's going to be there. Because for me, I would have so much FOMO from not going to this party, even if he would be there with his new girlfriend. So I was like, I know, I'll bring a friend with me so that way I can have emotional support. So I invited a friend. She canceled on me the day of. And so I texted my friend Joe, who also knew Mark, and I was like, hey, do you know if Mark is going to be at this party? And Joe, who normally would have gone to this party, was in Brazil. So he was like, don't go to the party. Just don't go. I was like, why? Is he going to be there? Is he going to be there with Julia? And he didn't answer any of my questions. He just kept telling me, don't go, don't go, don't go. And I'm like, I'm going. So, and I have to admit, because I consider myself extremely courageous nowadays, this was 2017. I was not courageous. So I think it was really kind of bold and badass of me to go to this party alone, because that's exactly what I did. And I'm not going to lie, though, it was terrifying. I remember driving there and walking up to the rooftop. I was just on the cusp of an anxiety attack. And I almost said something that was foreshadowing, so I'm not going to say it. But anyway, I walk in, and it had been raining all day, so the attendance to this party was not as big as it normally was. So I walk in, and I immediately see Mark, and he wasn't with Julia. Not only was he not with Julia, we start dancing, blah, blah, blah. He's touching me. It's very intimate and sensual. So immediately I'm like, oh, guess he's not with Julia anymore. So I took advantage of him touching me and dancing with me and all of this stuff. And then I start drinking, and anyone who knows me knows I don't drink. So I think I had 3 shots of tequila, which for the average person is probably having 10 shots of tequila. So I was so love drunk and high on life and dancing or whatever. And Mark's friend, I forget what I call him in the book. I'm not going to reveal his real name. Shoot. Where's his name? Oh, I call him Shandala in the book, which is a funny play on his name. But anyway, Mark's friend Shandala was there. I'm just going to call him Sean. And so he starts hooking up with this Spanish girl. And so Sean, the Spanish girl, and Mark were all going to go back to Mark's place for the after party. And so Mark was like, do you want to come? And I was like, yes. So I go back with them to Mark's place. Sean and the Spanish girl leave. Mark and I, like, we're kind of going to, I don't know what's allowed on YouTube, but I'll leave it up to your imagination. But we were both like really tired and drunk. But anyway, we wake up the next morning and we're like this close to it. And then he goes, here, I want to read it from my book. And then he says, I'm with Julia, right? I was like so embarrassed. And actually, I'm going to read this excerpt because it's like, it was almost like I had an out-of-body experience because I was in so much shock. I think I'm still on top of him, but I don't know. I can't move. I can't think. I can't even cry. The shame has paralyzed most of my body functions. My brain is telling me one thing, and by telling, I mean screaming. Run. So I basically get the hell out of there, and I leave. I grab my stuff and leave. Now, the problem with this is because when I parked at the gym for the rooftop party because it's like 2 blocks away from Will's house. So all I had was my car key. I left my phone and my wallet in my locked glove compartment of my car, which was parked by Will's. Mark is like a mile away. All I have is my car key. So I don't have my phone to order an Uber. I can't hail a cab because I don't have cash or a credit card. So I have to walk a mile to my car, which sucks because all I have is heels. So I start walking barefoot, and this is a city of Chicago sidewalk. So there's like pebbles and bullshit everywhere. I'm dressed like I'm doing the walk of shame. So I was just so full of shame. And I want to read another excerpt. I take off my heels for the walk. It wouldn't be so bad if there weren't pebbles and bullshit all over the sidewalk. My feet start getting tore up, but all I can focus on is getting to my car. The shame is so explosive that I'm positive everyone driving by can see. Plus, I'm dressed like I'm doing the walk of shame, so it's basically like wearing a neon sign with a huge arrow. When I start feeling comfortable with being uncomfortable, I walk past a fire station and the garage doors are wide open, exposing a crew of firefighters who are sitting in chairs, enjoying the view of the city of Chicago sidewalk that I am plodding along with my raw, tore up feet. I can feel all eyes on me. The shame sets my face and neck on fire in a way that they can't even put out. And I was so embarrassed, and the entire time I'm criticizing myself, like I should have known, like I was blaming myself. I should have known. And then I got back to my car, and my glove was in the glove compartment, so I pull it out, and there were a bunch of texts, none from Mark, but there was a text from Sean Dollar at 12:01 a.m., and it was a picture of me and Mark dancing. And that's when I snap into reality, because I was like, wait, how is he still with Julia? He was at Will's party alone. He had his hands all over me. People saw us together, including Shandala. He held my hand on the way to his truck before we went back to his place. He took me home. There were no signs of her at his house. There was one toothbrush in the bathroom. There were all male toiletries. He had all his food in the fridge and cupboard, and he made out with me, got naked last night, and we almost blanked this morning. And so that's when I was like, oh, damn, he really took advantage of me, because there were no signs until he said something. And I'll end it here, but I went into this huge shame spiral because he had already broken my heart enough in the 8 years that we were together. And this was the straw that broke the camel's back. And the worst part is I was only blaming myself, even though at any point he could have gave me a sign that he was with her and he didn't. I was being a total idiot and just feeding into needing his validation. And it just set me in this total shame spiral. But I do want to say this chapter was such a fan favorite because, well, first of all, even writing about it in hindsight, I felt a lot of shame because I shouldn't have gone to the party. I was an idiot for going. I was an idiot for feeding into, because I knew he was a dog. So I'm like, I should have known, even though he wasn't giving me any signs. I'm a smart person. I'm intuitive. I should have known. So I do take accountability for my part in this. So there was a lot of shame even writing about it, because I was like, oh my God, like it's crystal clear that I shouldn't have gone to this party, but I did. And then I wrote about it. So many people are like, yep, I've done that too. The same thing happened to me. So love will have you doing some crazy stuff, especially trauma bonds. So I'm really glad I wrote about all of the details, because I do think that that is a major shared experience. So we're only at chapter 7. Next we have chapter 8. Let me see if I can give you a little preview. Oh yeah. It gets worse before it gets better. But we're moving right along, and hopefully I'll make more progress on the book. I do need to get some yellow rhinestones for the slipper. So I will see you next week.